There's a guy who hasn't bought new furniture in 3 years, eats instant noodles 4 times a week, and sleeps on a mattress on the floor. But his 1994 Nissan Skyline GTR, freshly tuned, perfectly maintained, and worth more than everything else he owns combined.
And here's the thing, he's not struggling. He's making a choice. A very specific, very deliberate choice that most people around him will never understand. So what is actually going on inside the mind of someone like that? Because this isn't just a hobby. When you look at JDM culture closely, really closely, you start to see patterns that have nothing to do with cars and everything to do with the deepest parts of human psychology: identity, belonging, control, nostalgia. And something even more primal that most enthusiasts themselves couldn't explain if you ask them directly. Let's start with where it almost always begins. Most people who are obsessed with JDM cars today didn't fall in love with them as adults. They fell in love between the ages of 12 and 17. Maybe it was a poster of a Toyota Supra on their bedroom wall. Maybe it was staying up past midnight playing Gran Turismo or watching Initial D. Maybe it was the first time they heard a rotary engine rev and felt something shift inside their chest that they couldn't name. Psychologists call this the reminiscence bump. Our brains are wired to form the strongest, most emotionally charged memories during adolescence. The music you loved at 15 hits different than music you discovered at 30. The same principle applies to cars. When a developing brain encounters something exciting, rebellious, and visually stunning during those critical years, it doesn't just remember it, it bonds with it. It attaches emotional meaning to it at a neurological level that is genuinely difficult to undo. This is why a 40-year-old man will spend $20,000 restoring a car that cost him $8,000 to buy. Rational? No. Psychologically inevitable? Absolutely. But nostalgia alone doesn't explain the obsession. Plenty of people feel nostalgic about things they don't devote their entire lives to. So there has to be something else. And there is. JDM cars represent something that modern mainstream cars have almost completely abandoned. They are raw, they are mechanical, they are honest. You can feel every imperfection in the road through the steering wheel. You can hear the engine breathing. Nothing is hidden behind layers of software and digital abstraction. And in a world where almost everything has become sanitized, optimized, and algorithmically smoothed out, that rawness feels like oxygen. There is a psychological concept called perceived control, and it matters more to human happiness than most people realize. When life feels uncertain, when your career, your relationships, your finances feel like they are operating beyond your direct influence, the human mind desperately seeks out a domain where it can feel competent and in control. For JDM enthusiasts, the car becomes that domain. You can learn everything about it. You can take it apart and put it back together. You can tune it, modify it, improve it. You can become genuinely expert level in something tangible. In a world full of invisible problems, this is a problem you can actually solve with your hands. This explains why so many people in the JDM community aren't just drivers. They are mechanics, researchers, historians. They know production numbers, factory specifications, regional variants, and engineering quirks that even the original manufacturers have forgotten. That depth of knowledge isn't accidental. It's a psychological defense mechanism dressed up as enthusiasm. Now here is where identity comes in, and this is the part most people on the outside completely misunderstand. When someone says they drive a JDM car, they are not just describing their vehicle, they are describing themselves. The JDM world has a specific value system built around authenticity, anti-mainstream thinking, mechanical purity, and a rejection of status symbols for the sake of status. A JDM enthusiast isn't trying to impress you with a luxury badge. They're signaling something far more specific. They want you to know they did the research. They chose the road less taken. They understand something most people don't bother to understand. Psychologists who study subcultures call this in-group identity. Humans are tribal by nature, and every tribe develops signals, rituals, and shared knowledge that separates members from outsiders. In JDM culture, those signals are extraordinarily specific. The stance of the car, the specific generation of the engine. Whether you run genuine parts or replicas, these aren't just preferences, they are social codes. And belonging to a group that requires that level of knowledge to enter feels profoundly meaningful to the people inside it.
This also explains something that confuses outsiders enormously: the almost aggressive defensiveness JDM enthusiasts display when their culture is criticized or misrepresented. When someone dismisses their passion as pointless, it doesn't feel like a comment about a car. It feels like an attack on their identity. Because it is.
There is another layer to this that goes even deeper, and it has to do with what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. Most of the things we pursue in adult life are extrinsically motivated. We work for money, we dress for other people, we perform for approval.
But genuine obsessions, the kind that survive financial hardship and social judgment and decades of sacrifice, those are powered by something internal, something that doesn't need external validation to keep burning.
JDM car enthusiasts overwhelmingly describe their passion in terms that have nothing to do with what other people think. They talk about how it feels to drive a perfectly balanced, naturally aspirated engine through a mountain pass. They talk about the satisfaction of solving an engine problem they've been chasing for months. They talk about sitting in the car in their garage at night just to think. That is not performance for an audience. That is a deeply personal relationship with an object that has become a vehicle, in every sense of that word, for something much larger. And then there's the community. Because no matter how personal the obsession feels, it almost never stays private for long. The JDM world has produced some of the most tight-knit, genuinely loyal communities in car culture. Track days, car meets, online forums that have been running for 20 years. Friendships forged over shared frustration with unobtainable parts from Japanese auction houses.
This community fulfills a psychological need that is just as powerful as everything else we have discussed. The need to be truly known by people who share your specific reality. There is something extraordinarily comforting about being in a room full of people who understand exactly why you would cry if your RB26 threw a rod.
You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify the choices. You are already understood. And for a lot of people, that feeling is rarer and more valuable than almost anything else in their lives. So what does all of this tell us about the human mind?
It tells us that obsession is almost never about the thing itself. It's about what the thing gives us access to. Nostalgia for the version of ourselves that first felt alive. Control in a world that feels uncontrollable. Identity in a culture that flattens individuality. Community in an age of radical isolation.
Meaning in a life that doesn't always offer enough of it. The guy eating instant noodles and sleeping on a mattress on the floor while his Skyline sits gleaming in the garage isn't making a bad decision. He's making a deeply human one. He found something that makes him feel like himself.
Something that connects him to his past and his people and his own sense of what matters. Something that most people spend their entire lives searching for and never quite locate. The car is just where he keeps it.